Mic check. Mic check. Psych. Welcome to Rock City Podcast with Cody Rieman and Dillon Spicer. What's up, buddy?
Hey, man. How's it going?
Pretty good, buddy. Can you believe we did all this?
Honestly, yes and no. I feel like that doing all this kind of seems like second nature, honestly. Building this whole studio, like it was a challenge, but it felt like it was something we needed to do.
Yeah, like a passion project, and just it's something we've wanted to do for a long time, both me and you, and we met, and it just kind of came to fruition.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely crazy. So
Yeah, I just think that like with the look and the feel that we're going for, like I feel like if you want to do it professional, you got to look professional, and I think we accomplished that pretty well. It's still a work in progress, but like I said, this is episode 1. So, it's still going to be added on to. Our studio here is still, we're still working on it, but I think we'll always be working on it, honestly.
Honestly, it's a project that's just going to keep going on and on and on, and that's what's going to be fun about it. But we built this table.
Built the table.
We made those curtains. We done all types of stuff. It's just ridiculous. So,
well, yeah. A lot of it's thanks to you, Cody. You've been, basically the money man behind this project, and I've been a lot of the passion and the drive and the designs, the looks, the feels, and you've been the know-how, the brains, it's like I got the ideas, but you're the one following them through. So, good team. A good team.
It's a good team. And my original plan was ridiculous, and then you're like, no, dude, we got like really make this look good.
Yes.
And when you just drew up this idea in my head, I was like, we could do that. It's perfect. Yes.
I always say you got to look the part. Like if you want to do it right, you got to look the part. That's why I'm going out to the tennis court. I got to look the part. I suck at tennis, but when I'm going out to the tennis courts, I got my little shorts on. I got my sneakers. I got my high socks. I got my fancy jackets. I'm looking fly, but I'm still doing terrible, but I'm looking good while doing it. And that's what's important. Looking good while failing.
Well, we're not going to say we're failing.
No, I wouldn't say failing, but even if it's something that's going to happen, you might as well look good while doing it.
Right. Oh, man. And dress for success and just show up. You know what I mean?
Dress for success.
What we're going to have the podcast mainly on is space, because we're in the Rocket City, right? And but we're going to have a bunch of guests on because me and Dillon are very social creatures, and we know a lot of people. And we're just like, it'd be kind of cool. And a lot of these people have really cool stories. Like, the stories are ridiculous. And a lot of people haven't even heard of them. I believe a lot of people haven't heard of them. So we're going to try to get them out there for the world to see, and just different messages.
Yeah, cool jobs that have to do with space, people that are working currently right now with the space program. It's not all guaranteed as of yet, so we're not going to try to name drop or say anything like that, but we want to have some very cool people that have, jobs that you probably didn't even know existed. So
yeah, and people you've probably never even heard of, and they got books out, and there's just so much experience and talent in the city and skills, and a lot of really cool people. And yeah.
And by this city, you mean Huntsville, Alabama.
Huntsville, Alabama, but I want to reach out to the whole world. That's why we're called the Rocket City.
Well, it all started here back with Warner von Braun starting, building the Rocket City here. It's pretty much all stemmed off of him deciding to move here and build the testing pads to start building the rockets, all that stuff. I know you know a little bit more about Huntsville history than I probably do, but
yeah, we don't have to go. I don't think we should go into detail. Maybe they could be a separate thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Huntsville, it's called the Rocket City after Warner von Braun, and that's just because of all the cool rockets built here. But we are going to go even before that and talk about something else.
Before rockets. How did you get to rockets? You had to have something first.
What is that? A kite?
A kite? Well, actually, I don't know how old kites are, to be honest. I feel like somebody put some straws through a napkin and, threw it up in the air, and all of a sudden they got a kite. That might have been 1,000 years ago. Who knows?
Wait. 1,000 years ago, though, they didn't have straws, I'm pretty sure. Napkins.
Straws.
It's a good metaphor. It's a good metaphor.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been anything. It could have just been, just a couple sticks and some thin fabric. But anyway, what we're talking about is planes. Planes, and also before planes. So the very first people to fly were the Wright brothers. The first heavier than air aircraft. That's the stipulation behind the Wright brothers, why they were the first to fly, because their aircraft was heavier than air. Because a hot air balloon and a steam powered airship, those are all lighter than air, and that's how they got up in the air, is because they weighed less than the air. So that's how they got there in the first place. But if you're taking off in something that's heavier than air, that's why you're first in flight. That's how the Wright brothers got that.
Okay, and first in flight. So I'm from North Carolina, and on our license plate it says first in flight.
First in flight.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have a little bit of a connection there with the Wright brothers, because obviously you grew up in the state where they flew first, but that's not actually where they're from. You know that, right? They're actually from Ohio.
Right, and that's where they're from, and that's where they actually, I think, built the whole plane.
Yeah, I think it's probably built the plane in Ohio and then took it all the way down to South Carolina to be able to. Wait, North Carolina or South Carolina?
North Carolina.
North Carolina. Oh man,
there's a difference, Dillon.
I heard you guys don't like each other, so
that's not necessarily true, I would say, but there's definitely a difference in North Carolina redneck and a South Carolina redneck.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
I'll tell you that, like, for real. But
okay,
anyway.
So your license plate says first in flight.
Correct.
Do you know what Ohio's license plate says?
No, remind me.
The birthplace of aviation. How does that make you feel as a North Carolinian?
I am not particularly...
Feel betrayed?
I don't feel betrayed. I mean, it's... we're the first ones in flight.
That's true.
So.
Yeah, it happened there. But the brains came from two Ohioans. Is that right? Ohioans?
We're going to make a lot of people mad.
Ohioanists?
Ohioanist?
All right.
I think Ohioans, man, we're butchering it. But, I mean, Ohio, there's a lot of people from there. Most presidents are from Ohio. Most astronauts are from Ohio.
I don't know about most. I'd say I know there's a decent amount.
Okay. Maybe not most. I'm probably wrong on that. But there's a good amount. And, I mean, I've had the privilege of escorting around retired astronauts, and 3 of them were from Ohio.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense why you would think that then. So the Wright brothers, they started young. They were building up designs for all kinds of machines starting at a very young age. Do you know how much school they got, Cody?
I don't know. I mean, we're talking...
the Wright brothers.
1903 was their flight, right?
Yes.
So we're talking probably very little, but I don't know how much.
They never graduated high school.
Wow. But that was common in their time, right? Like,
it was common for everybody to drop out? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, but I think they went up to 8th grade. I think my...
was 8th grade high school? Was 8th grade considered high school back then?
No, it was considered junior high.
I don't know, to be honest. It might be. Might have only went for 8 years or so.
Man, we don't know on that, so we're probably not going to talk about it later.
Well, the point is they never graduated high school. And they obviously weren't teaching how to build planes in high school. So they obviously dropped out to learn how to build different machines, originally bicycles. They had a bicycle shop where they were building bicycles in their shop, and they were selling them and making money, and probably how they, fueled their venture for planes, how they got the money for it in the first place. So they never graduated, and when they did finally end up flying, we're going to fast forward a little bit, they got a little bit of rain outside right now.
Yeah. But this is a really cool that's such a cool concept, because a lot of people now are especially entrepreneurs, they're about the hustle and dropping out of college and stuff like that and doing this and that. But it's
You want to be the next Steve Jobs? You can't spend your whole time in college. Apparently, that's what everybody's trying to tell you.
it's and I've definitely ran with that idea, but then it also is not necessarily true. Like people actually use college and are very successful at it.
There's so many ways to make money nowadays. I mean, you know, if you're good at social media, you can find a way to make money. It's crazy. I mean, if you're good at making videos, you can find a way to make money. There's endless possibilities nowadays.
Yeah, it's like bringing value to the world, and there's a lot of bad ways to bring value in the world too, which is scary, but and make money at. But
That's
yeah.
true. That's true.
Anyway, back to the Wright brothers and how they brought value in the world.
The Wright brothers. We're gonna fast forward to when they finally actually did get to fly. They flew in North Carolina. Do you know what town in North Carolina?
I think they call it Kitty Hawk, but it's right next to Nag's Head.
Okay, Kitty Hawk.
Yeah, and Kitty Hawk, I've been there multiple times actually, and just for vacation. It's really cool to go see all the lighthouses. It
Yeah.
really is.
Oh,
And
and a bunch of lighthouses there.
oh man, so many lighthouses.
You feel like you only need one. How many are they close together?
No, well, so they're along the whole Outer Banks. And,
Oh, okay.
and it's like
Are they still in use?
I don't know. I think some of them
Were
are.
they on? Were you there at nighttime? I guess is the better question.
No, I was not there at
Okay,
nighttime.
Okay, that makes sense.
So
Okay.
um,
So they did fly in Kitty Hawk. Kitty Hawk, that is such a great name. I wonder how it got its name. I don't know, but I just picture a hawk flying with a kitten. Like it's got it in its claws, it's flying away, and that's where they decided to fly for the first time. That's what I picture when somebody says Kitty Hawk.
Yeah. So honestly, when you go there, if you see like crazy mountains before, or it's like anything, it's just two like really little hills. To be honest, or three.
It's just two hills. Well, that makes sense because they were told to pick a flat, windy place with soft ground. Is it sand?
Mainly now it's like grown over, so
Kind of like
it's
sand
not-
dunes?
Yeah, it's more like sand dunes.
Okay.
There's a lot of erosion there too, so it's not how it used to be. But on the biggest hill, there's like an obelisk, like kind of memorial for them.
An obelisk.
Yeah, or like a statue kind of deal.
Okay.
So it's pretty cool.
It's not menacing looking at all, is it? Not a big black obelisk that's like got an all-seeing eye at the top or anything like that.
No.
I just think obelisks. I think something weird. I don't know why. Obelisk gives me
Are you thinking like the eye of Sauron here?
I'm thinking more like Egyptian kind of stuff, and I guess like the back of the dollar bill, you know.
Illuminati confirmed.
That's just what I think when someone says obelisk. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But do you know who flew first, Cody?
I do not.
Orville was actually the first to fly, but they decided that by a coin toss.
Really?
They obviously were put an equal amount of work into building the airplanes. So obviously both of them wanted to fly just as bad as the other. So Orville was they flipped a coin and landed on heads or tails, whatever Orville picked. And Orville won, so he got to go up and he got to fly for the very first time in December 14th, 1903. But it was unsuccessful, and he crashed. It made kind of messed up the plane a little bit, the aircraft. I guess they weren't calling it a plane back then, but it messed up the aircraft a little bit, and so they could not fly that day. It's December 14th. It's got to be a little cold there, right?
Yeah, I mean, in North Carolina with all the beaches, Wilmington, there's 3 beaches there, and one year we were surfing on Christmas, so.
But did you have those bodysuits on where you were like, you see people like surfing in Oregon and that kind of stuff? They got these full black bodysuits, they're surfing in like 20-degree water, or were you in shorts?
Not. Like it was 80 degrees out and we were in shorts.
Oh, okay.
No joke.
Okay, this is in December.
Yes.
And Christmas.
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay, so obviously it wasn't very cold in December 14th of 1903.
It possibly was, but keep it.
Possibly. But they he did not make it on his first attempt. And it took them 3 more days to repair the aircraft. And then Orville got to fly again. So it was him the second time. I guess because he crashed and they're like, it didn't count. You know, like come on, buddy. That one didn't count. Let me try again. So he actually flew in a coat and tie. I would be afraid my tie would get caught in a propeller or something like that. I wouldn't fly with a tie.
Man, though, it's just like what we were talking about. You got to go out with style.
That's
if you
true.
Have to. You
Dress
for success.
That's right. That's
you know
right.
What I mean?
Okay, that makes sense. He was thinking like as soon as he landed, press was going to be there, and they're all taking pictures of him. Yeah. But that's not what happened. So they flew 4 times that day. So this would be December 17th, 1903. They flew 4 times. They were actually going for a 5th flight, but the wind came and picked up their aircraft and flipped it over and made it unflyable. So they were going for a 5th flight. But that very first flight only lasted 12 seconds. I don't know if a lot of people know that.
I've heard about that.
120 feet for 12 seconds. That's how far they went.
Yeah, so I heard about that, and I remember that, or like I've been there with it, and there's a museum there, and they kind of talk about that. The first flight wasn't even that long, but yeah, and 4 times they flew it, and then wow, okay,
A gust of wind flipped it over and made it unflyable.
Jeez.
And then that aircraft eventually found its home in the Air and Space Museum, the Smithsonian's Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. The funny thing is, Cody, is I was actually there about a month ago, and I did not know that was the aircraft. It looked too good.
Really?
It looked too good. It just looked like a prop. It just, it's just like, sure, that's the aircraft. Like, there was somebody talking right in front of it, kind of giving like a little like spiel about their history and their bicycle shop and just everything they had going on. But in my defense, Neil Armstrong's suit from Apollo 11, not his Gemini mission, from the Apollo 11 mission was on the other side of the plane. I was trying to get to that. So that's why I did not pay a lot of attention to the Wright brothers flyer.
Okay. And that's really funny that you were going towards, the suit, and that's the plane.
I had to walk around the plane, pretty much like a full U around the plane just to get to the suit. And yeah, I did not appreciate it in the moment while I was there that was the actual flyer, the first plane that ever took off. I feel gypped, but I also realized that it was my fault. So, it is what it is. The funny thing is they did not originally want it to be in the Air and Space Museum.
Really?
They refused. Actually, for decades.
So why is it in the Air and Space Museum?
Well, eventually they accepted. So I guess they didn't steal it from them. I assume so.
Yeah.
So they did not want to donate it to the Smithsonian because they said that Secretary Samuel P. Langley's own aircraft, which is one of the Smithsonian's secretary, his aircraft was the first machine capable of sustained free flight. That's what the Wright brothers thought. That's funny. They were like, nah, it wasn't even us. It was some other
So they
dude.
denied it, and we're like, yeah, that wasn't even us, and don't put us in a museum. And after the press have already indicated that they are the first in flight, right?
Well, the funny thing about the press is they, I think they chose such a remote place. You said Kitty Hawk is pretty kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, middle of nowhere.
Maybe it was too remote because nobody was picking up their story when it first came out, the first time they flew. The Dayton Journal actually did not think that their short flights were important enough to cover. I guess because it was so short, and people were already flying around in hot air balloons, so like it was like, oh, those guys have been up there for 2 hours, and these guys only flew for 12 seconds. What's the big deal? But I guess they didn't kind of realize that it was the first heavier than air aircraft. So, probably everybody had a hot air balloon back then. That's how they got to work, so.
That is totally how they got to work,
Yeah.
not horse and buggy or horse.
Nah.
But
Nah, if you had a couple $100, you were in a hot air balloon. So,
I mean, I would.
I would.
To be honest.
I don't know why we don't right now.
It was just like what you're talking about in New York. They have the
Uber chopper.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically like Uber chopper, except hot air balloons and much slower. And I don't know how well you can control a hot air balloon, to be honest. You can decide which way it's going to go. I feel like you just have to go with the wind.
I'm under the impression you can't. No, so they have like different ropes and pulleys and stuff.
Yeah.
So
I know you can like slow down, but like where is the air? What's on the sides of it to make it go one way or the other? That's the question.
I'm not sure about that necessarily, but I know like they go higher by increasing the amount of.
That's what I'm saying.
Fire.
Up and down. That's all they got.
Yeah, you got a point.
So, anyway.
I'd like to go back to something.
Yeah, sure.
So the fact that you said it looks so perfect that you walked right by it.
Yeah.
And it didn't even look like it was a historical artifact. It's very interesting.
Well, it did look like a historical artifact, but it just looked so pristine and like well kept that I just assumed that it was a prop.
Okay.
So it was like, I don't know. It was so strange. I just didn't. So I guess I'm just been to a couple museums where they make a lot of props, and I'm just not. I just don't automatically assume that that's the real thing. I guess I don't know where they would have kept the real thing, but
Dress for success.
Dress for success. Yeah, that's the title of this episode. So
Oh, you called it.
all right. So the Dayton Journal actually didn't think they were important enough to cover. So the Virginia pilot, ironic, the Virginia pilot, ended up catching wind of the story.
Yeah.
All right. And they printed an air-ridden account that was picked up by multiple other papers. So the Dayton Journal didn't want to do it, and they were the pretty big paper back then in the area. But the Virginia pilot caught wind and went and picked up the story, and they got it completely wrong. They were given all kinds of wrong facts. They probably made it sound, way bigger, longer of a flight than it actually was, that kind of stuff. And then a bunch of other papers picked it up and were like, yeah, that's an awesome story. Let's also write about it. So now the entire country does not have the right facts about the first flight in American history.
So what are the right facts? That's crazy though. That like it's like playing a game of telephone and
basically, yeah.
So
the right facts. The right facts are that they flew 120 feet and, for 12 seconds and, it was 4 times the original day. I mean, that's all there was to it. And they got it wrong. I don't know how they got it wrong, but eventually the Dayton Journal, I guess found out that everybody else was getting it wrong. Maybe the Wright brothers were like, guys, they're getting it wrong. Please just write the right story. The right story.
There are too many puns for this. Stop being a dad, Dillon.
All right, I'm sorry. I love the puns. But eventually the Dayton Journal wrote up an official and accurate story. So back to the airplane and the Smithsonian. The funny thing about them having Neil Armstrong's suit in the same room as the Wright Flyer is that he actually took a piece of the propeller and a part of the wing inside of his suit with him to the moon.
You're telling me the first plane to achieve, the first in flight has been to the moon and back, and we don't even know that. That's crazy. They don't talk about that at the museum in Kitty Hawk at all, and that is crazy.
Yeah.
We're linking this whole thing to space.
Yes, we're linking the whole thing with space. I mean, as you can see behind me, I'm floating in a nebula right now. So, yeah, I didn't even know that until recently after I was looking all this up, that he flew up there with a piece. He thought it was such a, monumental piece of history that he felt lucky enough that they would even let him take a piece of it with him to the moon. So the Wright brothers, had they been alive, they would have been able to see a piece of their aircraft go to the moon. And you know how much it costs to send stuff to space. It ain't cheap. So, I mean, I guess everybody was on board with that.
And they died not knowing that. Well, think about this. So think about if you or your brothers create some piece of maybe spacecraft,
Yeah.
or maybe like I don't know, anything, right? Invented something new, and it went all the way to Mars, but you died before knowing that, or like it went all the way to the like another galaxy.
Sad. That would be sad.
Well, like for them too, it's like probably like another. For us, it'd be almost like another galaxy, which would be crazy. You know, interstellar.
I'd say Mars. Mars is good enough for me.
Yeah, but for them at the time, going to the moon probably wasn't like a possible thing. We're just trying to learn how to get off the ground.
That's true. We already kind of see Mars
it's very
as a possible
monumental
thing. Yeah.
So
that's true. The Wright brothers were actually involved in the first fatal aviation accident.
Really?
So the first time anybody was in, I assume when we have that stipulation, the first fatal aviation accident, it was the first time somebody was in a heavier than air plane. Because I'm sure there were some people who were trying out hot air balloons and did not make it back. So,
sounds just like the space program. Monkeys, dogs.
Yeah.
Flying for the flies.
Well, we're going to get to that soon. But the Orville was actually involved in the first fatal aviation accident. After their success in 1903, the Wright brothers continued their aircraft development. They marketed a 2-passenger military flyer to the American military, obviously. This was before they had an Air Force. So they were trying to sell this to them because obviously who's going to give you the most money for a piece of equipment?
The military.
The military.
The government. I mean, well,
the government.
That's just like everything with the space program too. So
exactly. They were trying to sell this to the military, and they had a demonstration on September 17th, 1908. So this is only 5 years.
5 years.
5 years after they created the first aircraft. They're already got a two passenger plane. Only took them 5 more years. They're like, yeah, we got 2 people in here now. And I assume that they did a little bit of testing beforehand, but it didn't go well at the military base.
What happened?
They took up Lieutenant Thomas Selfridge as a passenger. Just a few minutes into the flight, the propeller disintegrated. Just blew up. It was gone. I assume it was made out of wood, and it was completely gone. And the aircraft spiraled out of control, and it smashed into the ground at full speed.
Ooh.
Rescuers pulled the unconscious Selfridge from the wreckage, and the lieutenant died a few hours later. So not only did they create the first airplane, but they were also involved in the first person to pass away from being in an airplane.
Ooh.
Luckily, it wasn't one of them. I mean, at least they got to keep making more airplanes, and I assume they eventually got it figured out. But I also assume that the military did not buy any planes that day.
Yeah, I assume that, and also like, man, that would stink. That where you had so much success in the beginning, and then you're like, let's
they were on top of the world
you know?
back then. They had to be.
Yeah, and that must be very embarrassing. They do that in front of a bunch of military people watching, probably, or just a bunch of officials, and it has crashed. And do we know if he dressed for success during his test?
Ooh, that's a good question. Did he dress for success? I'm sure there's photos or something before they flew. Hopefully. He probably was in a coat and tie. A tote and tie.
A coat and tie. Tote and tie?
A coat and tie. I assume if he was flying that for the first time he was ever flying, he's got to be, showing up snazzy to the military base. So that's kind of the story of the Wright brothers. A little bit of facts and fun facts there.
Yeah.
But there were people that came before.
Yeah. I've heard that, and then I don't know too much about it, but obviously, you hear stories of a bunch of people just with a lot of hot air balloons and a lot of testing and
Yeah.
here we have the quick plane.
Yeah,
Really
Alabama's
quick.
quick plane was supposed to be built before the Wright brothers, but he didn't fly it. Something to that effect.
Really?
I think he built it a couple years before, but he never actually got it in the air. Something to that effect. You'd think if you built something, you would immediately try to take it into the air, but maybe he was just really cautious.
It's just what I keep preaching to you, man. You just gotta throw stuff at the wall.
Throw stuff at the wall and hope for the best. So a little bit before the Wright brothers, Clement Ader went half the length of a football field in a winged suit setup that many view as the first man-powered and heavier-than-air flight in 1890. It only went 50 yards. So I don't know how this was powered. Apparently, it was powered by some sort. Maybe he had it like a hydraulic assist, to where he could like flap his arms faster.
It didn't say why what it was powered by or anything.
That would be a good thing to look up. Pretty soon
Well,
here.
it's fine.
Pretty soon here. Eventually, if Cody is ever interviewing anybody, I will be manning mission control, and I'll be pulling up the facts. We got a TV right up behind us. We'll be pulling up facts and have any questions that we want. But right now, it's just me and Cody, and we got nobody to ask to pull up facts. And but it was powered in some sort of sense.
All right.
And it was manned, and it was heavier than air.
In half a football field.
Half a football field.
So why was that not counted as the first flight? I don't know. Like, if you throw a stick and a dog catches it, this is a horrible metaphor.
Is that how you play fetch?
Yeah, it's no.
Where were you going with that, Cody?
I was trying to relate how would you assume what would be the first flight in 18 or 17?
1890.
1890.
Okay, so only 13 years before the Wright brothers.
Okay, I wonder who decides all this. It's like, well, if you fly,
maybe
this
he
far,
wasn't American. That's what it was.
Oh, so yeah,
that's probably why.
They say the winners write history. So,
so that was in 1890. Then, 1852, Henry Giffard had a steam-powered airship.
Ooh.
It was 1852. He traveled almost 17 miles. 17 miles from Paris to Trapeze, moving about 6 miles per hour.
So is that why?
So how long did it take him to get there? 3 hours? To go 17 miles? That's right.
So, wait, you're telling me he went 17 miles?
17 miles.
And
1852.
1852. Okay. That's just, why did they not count that?
That's because that I assume that was some sort of like helium blimp or something like that. It was steam powered, but it was probably not heavier than air.
Okay.
So maybe the steam was lifting it up. But this is all the way back in, 1852. Now we're, 50 years before the Wright brothers.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive time difference and time jump. Like what?
But he could only control it when the wind was calm. If it was windy, he'd probably just end up doing donuts in the sky.
Donuts in the sky.
Doing donuts in the sky, 1852. You just look up. You've never seen anything in the air except a bird, and you see a giant airship just doing circles.
Think about just being somebody walking, and you just see that, and you're just like, but we talk about donuts now, doing donuts with vehicles. I think they could have done a donut with a horse.
Done a donut with a horse? Yeah, you can train a donut. You can train a horse to do a donut. I mean, like drift, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I've played video games where you can drift on a horse with a horse.
Well, that's a video game.
I think that the mechanics look sound. All right, it looks like the all you got to do is have the back legs not going as fast as the front, and they can kick it out.
Okay.
So if you can make it drift, you can make it do a donut. Horses.
Donuts in the sky, 1852.
1852. People were, but obviously that's not ideal. This guy was trying to go places.
Yeah.
He was a busy man. He had to get from Paris to Trapeze in 3 hours, 17 miles. That's terrible. Honestly, that's so slow. I assume that you could walk it faster than that. How fast do people walk?
17 miles?
How fast can you run? 9 miles an hour?
I don't know off the top
I
of my
feel like
head.
it's like 8 or 9. It's pretty like not too bad, not too fast.
I think I ran 4 or 5 miles today, and it took me about 45 minutes. Maybe I'm probably wrong.
That seems wildly inaccurate, Cody. If you
wildly inaccurate.
if you can run that fast, you need to be signing up for 5K races, and I'll be betting money on you, because that seems really
the fastest 5K is like 15 something, I think.
What is that, 2.5 miles?
3.1.
3.1.
I learned this recently.
These darn Europeans and their kilometers.
Or like we're the only ones that use
I know,
miles
I know.
and feet and
It's
stuff
not
like
my
that.
fault. It's the American school system for teaching me, the imperial system, and I don't, it's frustrating. But
Every time somebody asks that from a different country, I'm just like, look, this is how we do it. I don't know. It's kind of like how they do weird stuff in other countries.
apparently, America did adopt the metric system, not that long ago. I think it was like 30 years ago.
Really?
They officially adopted the metric system, but nobody changed. Everybody still uses the imperial.
Sounds like some stubborn American thing to do. And I think they use it a lot in laboratories, and scientists do. They use the metric system.
Yeah, because it's apparently way easier to use. I mean, I understand the metric system, but
yeah.
I know that it is easier to use. So it is funny that we don't seem to use that in air travel or space travel. They always talk about
They
miles
do. They do.
And
They
feet.
use kilometers.
Astronomical units.
Astronomical units.
Yes.
And stuff like that. So
Okay.
I mean,
But an astronomical unit is just how far we are away from the sun, right?
right.
So you can measure that with miles or kilometers, but I guess it's whoever's looking at it.
Yeah.
So modern flight, the very first time anybody ever flew in modern times was 1783.
Really?
1783, Joseph Michael and Jacques Etienne Montgolfier engineered the first hot air balloon. That's a mouthful right there. Jacques Etienne Montgolfier engineered the first hot air balloon. This was October 15th, 1783. They were up in the air. We're talking 130 years before the Wright brothers, 120.
1783?
120 years.
120 years. Wow.
So they were already up in the air. You could assume now why the Wright brothers didn't think that they were the first flyers.
Right.
I guess because they people have been flying for 120 years. What's the big deal? It's probably also why the newspapers didn't pick it up. That kind of stuff. Because like we were saying earlier, everybody with $100 had a hot air balloon back in the day. So the Montgolfier brothers launched a balloon on a tether the first time.
Tethered. Sounds just like the space program.
Yes. Yeah, how we sent up the first space shuttle with a big dog leash on it. That's right.
I didn't mean that.
Something like that.
I meant like spacewalk and stuff like that, and then we did untethered spacewalk.
Do we do untethered spacewalks?
Oh, we do not.
Okay, I was about to say.
It's too unsafe.
Yeah, that
but
sounds
eventually,
risky. Sounds unnecessarily risky. Just get a long rope.
yeah, and I don't know. I mean, it's kind of cool. And then they got the jetpacks and the man maneuvering unit, and they've only made 3 of those. And the first one ever is actually here in Huntsville, Alabama, at the Space and Rock Center. And
nice.
It's pretty cool looking. It's a little space jetpack. And a lot of people don't know the different picture where the picture that's on that plaque is Bruce McCandless. But there's another picture taken of him where he's a little dot. So he left the shuttle and then came all the way back. And he's over the Earth, untethered.
Whoa.
Like a couple, I don't even know how many feet. I mean, it's at least more than a football field.
Yeah.
Away from the shuttle. Like, that's pretty scary. Like,
That's
what if
terrifying.
what if something messed up and he just started flying off? And, it's like the 80s or the 90s. We didn't know we're still learning so much about space. So
I guess I assume that if you're willing to strap yourself into a rocket, you must
that's
be
true.
pretty fearless.
Yeah, I mean, I would.
Yeah. I mean, I think I might. I don't know. Nobody's offered yet. So I think I'll cross that bridge when somebody's like, "Hey, you want to get in my spaceship?" And I'm like, I'll have to think about it.
That's gonna be me. I'm gonna ask you to come in my spaceship, bro.
I hope
And
so.
we're gonna go somewhere.
I hope so.
It'll be fun.
So
We'll be just like the Wright brothers, but like Elon Musk building the Starship and stuff like that. It's kind of weird, but I think in at least 100 years, people might start building their own spacecrafts. If you think about like the price is going to get cheaper.
yeah,
I don't know. I'm throwing that out there. It's kind of a crazy idea, but it's just.
I don't think it's wildly crazy. Like I don't think that's totally like unbelievable.
Yeah, because it's like you can build a plane now. That was 100 years ago.
Yeah,
You know, I don't know what we're talking about. You know, so
that's true. It wouldn't be. It's. I mean, I don't know how to build a plane, but I assume that you can just look up the
totally look it up.
You just get a 3D printer and you probably have a plane in a matter of days.
That'd
I don't
be
know.
a great idea.
Probably. You got enough 3D ink, if that's what they call it.
That's a lot. Probably.
So they launched. We're going back to 1783. We're gonna take it back. These guys were launching a hot air balloon with a tether because they probably didn't know if they could get it to come back down. Maybe they just like left it on the tether until it ran out of gasoline, and then it just fell back down. They sent it up there with Jean-Francois Pilatre de Rosier, a chemistry and physics teacher, as the passenger. So this is a big deal. This dude's like, well, chemistry and physics teacher. He probably was like, yeah, this will work fine. Yeah, let's do it. And he's like, nobody else thinks it'll work. I'll be the first one to get in there, because he probably had studied it enough to probably be pretty confident in that he was going to survive. So,
all right, trick question, Dillon. If you're a chemistry teacher at a university, just saying you are. I know you're not, but just saying you are. And I ask you to get into my blimp that can go underwater in outer space. Would you do it?
that sounds okay. It can go to outer space and it can go underwater. Are we going to do both, or are we just going to go underwater?
We're going to do both.
If we're going to do both, if we're doing both, I'm going to say no. I'm going to have to pass, honestly. I'm sorry.
Okay.
A blimp?
like literally, that's
is it filled with helium, hydrogen? What's making it go underwater? I guess this is a metaphor. I shouldn't.
Yeah. But the point is, let's like imagine being asked to get in hot air.
Yeah, you're right. That's as ridiculous to me. Yeah. So that guy was pretty fearless, but like I'm not a physics professor, so I wouldn't know. I wouldn't be able to know if it was going to work or not. So
True.
This guy was probably like looked at it all and figured it out and was like, yeah, this will fly.
True.
So he's probably pretty fearless. This is the first dude to ever fly in modern times. If you think about it that way.
Yeah.
And of course it would be a chemistry and physics teacher. But like we said, that's the first person to fly. So they actually did not send up people first.
Makes sense.
Just like the space program, we were sending up first satellites and then, dog and then a couple monkeys and a chimp.
Yep.
So obviously they sent up a couple animals to see if they would survive in this hot air balloon. And just see, they didn't know if anybody could survive because nobody had done it. So they sent up a couple animals and to see if they survived, and they did.
I would assume so, since we still use hot air balloons.
Yeah.
Now,
The cat. It probably wasn't a cat. I'm gonna say it was a dog. The dog did survive. He didn't have a heart attack. He wasn't afraid of heights.
Okay.
So he was fine.
It's good.
He was like, oh, there's my owner way down there. I guess hopefully I'll see him again soon. And he did. He came back down. They survived. As did Rosier. When he went up, he didn't die either.
That's a good thing.
It was successful. And later that year, they had the first untethered flight. So they had the first untethered flight in 1783. They were flying around. Everybody was getting it. Yeah. So, but is there anything older than that?
Possibly. I believe that there's probably people that have tried it because they're like, I want to try that.
A lot of people think Da Vinci.
Yeah.
Da Vinci comes to a lot of people's minds because he had, the flying machine, schematic drawn up, And that was 500 years ago. So, you know, that was a long time ago. This guy was thinking about flying all the way back in the 1500s.
Well, he was also thinking about just so many things at the same time. It's absolutely crazy what that man has done, and that's why we call him a Renaissance man. But
Yeah.
I think it's almost interesting to say that if he focused on one thing, he probably would have killed it. Like, killed it. But I mean, that's how my mind races a lot. I just think about so many different things at once. And
Well, you know, I maybe I don't know how he felt, but
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah,
he
that's
felt like
true.
he was just kind of good at every. I've always had kind of had those thoughts that I've always felt like I'm pretty good at a lot of things, but I don't know if I'm great at anything. So maybe that's how he felt.
yeah,
And he was like, I'm just gonna spread myself real thin. I'm gonna paint. I'm gonna sculpt. I'm gonna build flying machines, catapults, and all kinds of stuff. He was all over the place.
He just threw stuff at the wall.
So obviously, if they're thinking about it 500 years ago, you think it was all just because of birds?
I'm not sure. I mean, it's
Probably.
possible. Well, probably, but I mean, there's probably insects. Yeah, I mean that's probably mainly birds. So,
Birds, yeah. I feel like just the birds flying around were just like, man, wish I was like that bird. So
and then so think about I don't want to sound ridiculous right here, but think about if you see a bird fly and then you're like looking and a bird's small compared to how much air is actually there and like how fast you can go and how like these are the questions I would assume they start asking when they see a bird flying. They're like, how far can you go? How fast can you go? Can you be bigger than a normal bird? Can you have different wing structures? I mean, somebody had to sit there and be like, huh, yeah, we can't do that. We're just chimps with bigger brains and we can't fly with our arms, but we can build stuff. And I think that's how we eventually got down to it and just innovation in general. And it's a start.
well, now with these people and their flying like jetpacks, there's videos of people with like basically Iron Man suits.
Yes.
Flying around like with personal, like all you're using is your arms with basically giant hair dryers on your hands, taking you off and levitating you around. And I mean, I don't think the innovation's ever going to stop. I feel like until we're all eventually have that dream of we're all getting to work on jetpacks. Do you think that some people will opt out of jetpacks to drive their car? Like they're like, I want that nostalgic feel of I'm gonna take my car to work. I'm gonna get stuck in traffic. Like that's what I want.
Well, it definitely depends on practicality because we've invented flying cars for the most part. It's difficult, obviously, but
now Boeing and now an electric car company are working on an electric flying car. They have just like the all black image of like what it could possibly look like, but it's supposed to be all electric. And it's supposed to be like an in-city thing. Do you think that once we get, like, as soon as, like, flying cars happen, we're going to have air traffic? Like, you have to stay in this lane. You have to go in between these buildings.
I don't think we're going to have air traffic. I don't think we're going to have flying cars.
Ever?
The reason why is because it seems very impractical. There's just too many laws with the amount of airspace. I know we've all seen Star Wars and how that works out. And maybe like really far down in the future it might be practical, but it's probably practical where they can be both on land and flying. Okay. I think it's probably going to evolve more to like a railway system flying and just moving a massive amount of people. And I think it's going to get more efficient because it's better for people to walk around. When I lived in New York City, it's very interesting going around the subway and the lifestyle. And there are, I'm not fat shaming here, but like most people in New York City are not that fat because
they're walking around. I mean,
they're
it makes
walking
sense.
around everywhere.
Not a lot of people own cars in New York City.
Yeah, it's just way too expensive and
too expensive to park it. I feel like you could afford the car, you just can't afford to park it anywhere.
Okay, I've hacked that system though. There's certain times where you're allowed to park on the streets for free. Okay. So every time I drive there, I actually figured that out because since I used to live there, and I just park my car. And after I drove like a 12-hour trip, drive right in New York City, park my car, I'll move it when it has to be moved. But you can find one, like you really can.
Okay.
One of those hacks out there if you guys travel a lot. But
I feel like you didn't describe the hack. I feel like you just said that it's possible. Is there certain areas of New York City that you can like find, or are you going to tell these people? If you tell everybody though where your spot is, your spot's not going to be there when you get there. So
on every street in most cities,
you park right next to the stop sign, right in front of it.
No. You just listen. So have you seen like it says you can park here 7 to 5, or like 8 to 5. So what that is like in New York City at least. Gosh, it's leaving me. No, wait. So you can park there during that time, or you park on this side, the other side during that time, and then the street cleaner comes at a certain time. And it says on there when you're not supposed to be there. Or it actually doesn't really say on there when you're not supposed to be there. It says when you're allowed to be there, and then you just got to know when the street cleaners are coming.
So you never have to pay for that parking?
In certain areas you do. But you just got to know the streets that you don't. And it's just a lot of the...
I feel like everybody in New York would be taking advantage of that if they all knew it. Do you think it's like a secret not everybody knows there?
Oh, no, the people that live there know about it.
They just don't own cars. They don't own cars, so they don't...
No, they do own cars. People in New York own cars.
I know they do. I feel like nobody drives in New York because there's too much traffic.
Have you have you driven and been there?
That was a joke, Cody.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. There's so much traffic, and a lot of people do own cars, which is ridiculous. And but there's a way to park there for free. You just got to know when the street cleaners come in, just to check out the signs and move your car when you need to.
Okay.
So
okay.
Yeah. But
you said that we were never going to have flying cars. That's what I want to talk about.
Yeah. So I don't think it's practical. I just don't. It's going to clog up airspace. There's going to be too many laws on it. I think what I was saying before, it's going to move to more of a subway flying system.
Oh, I get you.
And people walking more places, and then other than driving, or they might even just Uber around, but maybe just more like buses. It's just more efficient to build that way, it seems, because like New York City, it's so small. It's like I can't even remember how many miles, but you can run it right now.
Yeah, we talked about this recently. You said it was around, I want to say like 11 miles, not even 9.
I think it's and we should be looking it up and get the actual facts. I think it's 3 miles by 11 miles. No joke. Like that's the Manhattan Island. Now the other parts of New York,
24 blocks is 1 mile.
Oh. Well, I didn't know that. Well, that's weird though, because every street seems different though.
That's true. Not all blocks are going to be the same. That was just the town I grew up in.
Oh, okay.
I just knew that I had to run a mile. To run a mile in my gym class was running around the block 24 times. So,
that's funny.
Okay. It might not be that way everywhere, but at least
probably
not.
But my point is, like, it's very impractical because of all the things you had to worry about in the airspace. They're already having a problem with the drones.
Could you imagine a 16-year-old getting their driver's license and they just take off in a flying car? I would not want to be in the air. I'm terrified enough as it is on the road. And having a 16-year-old getting their driver's / pilot's license taken off in their flying car. Ooh.
I mean,
scary thought.
Well, IQ increases.
IQ increases over time.
Yeah. And over time, so maybe you can trust them better, but that doesn't necessarily... IQ just means that you learn things faster.
You thought the driving test was stressful. Now you got to take the flying car test.
I actually failed my driving test. You want to know how many times I failed it?
I'm scared to know the number. Let's hear it, though.
It's not the actual driving part. I actually aced that first time.
You failed the written part.
Yeah, the multiple choice thing.
How many times, Cody?
9.
9 times? I feel like there's only like 15 questions on there. All you have to do is figure out which ones you got wrong. I aced it first time, buddy. The funny thing is I failed my driver's ed class. I didn't have to take the test. I was supposed to be able to go there and just get my license, but they let me drive in driver's ed. I immediately pulled out in front of somebody to take a left turn at a green light. Failed within 3 seconds.
Really?
So, but I aced it when I had the real driver's test at the courthouse. So But I don't know if
Dang. It's like we complete each other.
Yeah.
You're good with the test stuff, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
This is funny.
I think that I think I never would have passed the flying test though. But Boeing is working on this individual flying car. Like they're building this electric flying car. It looks crazy.
Yeah.
Boeing's
doing a lot.
There's images of it on the internet, and it's crazy. And maybe 30, 50 years from now, instead of like we said, calling an Uber, not the Uber chopper, you're getting the Uber flying car, and it's all electric. Probably only can go like 3 miles on the battery charge, but at least you're getting there quick.
In physics, something like this where there's a max capacity of battery input and output or something, like we can't exceed a certain amount of battery power. So we actually relying on batteries is going to be a problem in the future. Like we have to figure out something else. We can't just store all the information.
But batteries are getting better. Batteries keep getting better where they figure out new ways to make batteries, and it's just like we need to find a lighter way to make batteries.
Right.
Something that's not as heavy.
But apparently we can't store the energy. Like it's something in physics that talks about where it's going to stop. Like there's a limit, which is really weird to think about because like you said, I mean we're still increasing the amount of battery power storage
every year,
just like how all technology improves. But I don't know, apparently there's a limit on it. That's what I heard.
My phone weighs half as much as my phone from 5 years ago, and the battery lasts me 2 days.
That's true.
So they're always getting better. But you assume that you'd have to have such a big battery to be able to fly that it would be too heavy to fly.
Yeah. All right, let's go back to flight history. I'm curious, is there anybody further back than 1782?
1782 was
1783.
1780. Let's see the exact number here. 1783.
And by the way,
yes,
it looks like he's looking stuff up, but he's already had all this pulled up on his phone.
I had the notes ready. So 1783 was the first time. No, as far as I know, the earliest schematics were at least drawn in were drawn by Da Vinci, where he was trying to make a flying machine, but that thing did not work.
Okay.
There's all types of ancient culture that talks about flying machines, but nothing that really describes it in detail, or like nothing that can tell you how it worked. It was always like this person was flying around, this person taught us that, and how can we really go off of that? I think that 1783 is probably the earliest that we can have a documented man flying. So yeah, that's about as old as it goes.
Okay. So, did you want to talk about the one? This is a curious subject matter.
Okay, so
because I think it's very interesting subject matter. Now it's very controversial. So it's everything we say is what we found on it.
So there was this one guy that flew 8 years before the Wright brothers. His name was S.V. Talpaide. He did not fly before the Wright brothers. That supposedly had an unmanned aircraft fly in India, in the beach of Bombay. He supposedly flew this unmanned aircraft up into the air. This guy was born in 1864 in Mumbai. He apparently was a prodigy.
Okay.
He earned a PhD by the time he was 30. Okay. So that's pretty fast. That's a lot of schooling. When he was 15, he met a man named Subaraya.
Wait, back up.
Okay,
I'm sorry
okay.
to interrupt. But by 30?
By 30, he had a PhD.
I guess for that time, maybe it's hard, but PhDs, I mean, it's 8 years. Once you go to college at 18, you can get PhD by 26 if you're really crazy.
But we're also talking about 1890 at this point.
That's true. I'm not saying it's easy. But
So obviously this was only 1 year after he got his PhD. I feel like that's a little bit, presumptuous to say that you can get a PhD by 26. I've met a couple people that are going through their PhD, and it's something else. It's a lot harder than a lot of people give it credit for.
Yeah, I'm not saying like you absolutely can. I'm just saying that you can.
Well, the craziest thing about the PhD is that a lot of people know is that you have to have a dissertation. The dissertation is what makes you a doctor. The dissertation is a research paper that nobody else has ever researched before. Every doctor every doctor you've ever met has written a paper on something that nobody else has ever written a paper on. And it's usually supposed to be filling in the gaps of other research that other people have done. So if you ever meet somebody that's a doctor, be like, hey, what'd you write your dissertation on? Probably an awesome conversation to have.
Yeah. We might have a few of them on here.
Yeah, hopefully. And so he had his PhD by the time he was 30. And it's about as far as we can definitely, for a fact, give to this story.
Okay.
Then things get a little crazy. Okay. So he met somebody when he was 15. This guy had a very crazy name, Subaraya Sastry. Someone guess how you say that. He had been researching these things called Vimanas his whole life. Vimanas are flying machines in the ancient Indian text. And they talked about how all of these kings and these other people had very crazy aircrafts they were flying around a long time ago. They were researching a book that was written 2,000 years ago. So this is like the 5th oldest document known to man.
Wow.
And there's these flying machines, and there's this dude that was researching these and, devoted his whole life basically to it and was trying to figure out the secrets of how they were flying around. So that man that he met, he wrote a book called the Vimanika Shastra. It was a book about flying machines. They both worked together for about 15 years. So Shastri and Talpid being the hero of this story. They both worked together for about 15 years, and supposedly they built a Vimana that could not only fly, but could also be controlled with a remote control device. So this is all very controversial, okay? Because there's a lot of people online disputing all of this, discounting all of it. The point is that these guys were researching really old books trying to find out ways to fly. In 1895. So supposedly they built this aircraft, and it flew all the way up to 1,500 feet.
1,500 feet?
It stayed in the air for 37 seconds before it crashed. 20 seconds longer than the Wright brothers. But it's also unmanned. So...
Well, it's not completely... So, I know that...
It's unmanned, but it's not man-controlled.
Right.
Because it has some sort of remote control device.
Right. Well, Nikola Tesla was blowing people's mind with his remote control boats.
That's true.
And that was in, I don't know what type, but the early 19th century or 1900s. And that was crazy. And from that, the dude that invented radio actually used his patents from that whole experiment situation. So to actually figure that out beforehand, I mean, all these people were testing, flight and stuff. You don't think it's possible that it's like one of those old movies where they're doing a bunch of things beforehand, even like the Avengers and Captain America and stuff like that, where they had advanced machines and they're about to think about doing World War II before. Or no, now I'm thinking about
like the Red Skull. Red Skull and Captain America was right. Yeah. Those crazy flying planes. I just watched that recently. So yeah.
Well, I'm also talking about in Sherlock Holmes, the second one, where they're about to do a world war, and Moriarty is all talking about that. Well, the movies is talking about that, and that was his big plan to start a world war. Like, it's going to happen eventually, and this is like early 1900s. So, I think it's completely possible that. I think it's possible. I don't assume that it actually happened because we don't have a good historical count. But there's people running around all the time doing things that we don't know exactly what they're doing, but they're testing new things. They have ideas, and a lot of ideas people have thought of before. And I think it's just completely possible that we just missed it in the history books. And but keep going. What's next?
So
with that,
it flew up to 1,500 feet, 37 seconds. Then it flew down and crashed. This is supposed to be in front of a large crowd in Bombay. So what's crazy about this aircraft is that it flew straight up. It was vertical. That's what was supposed to be the strange thing about it. So after it crashed, he tried to enhance the features and build a new design which should be fueled by mercury ions. Mercury ions. He tried desperately to get funds, but was turned down by virtually everybody, but still built a mercury engine in his own house.
That's what he claims. He built a mercury engine in his house in the 1800s.
This would be like right around the 1900s. So like the start of the 1900s.
That's crazy.
But what we do know for a fact is that he did not have very much protective gear, and he became subject to mercury vapor poisoning, which created hallucinations and other mental disorders in S.B. Talpate. So when the word spread, the British people were actually Britain was occupying India at the time. Was occupying India. They heard about him building a mercury engine. So they went there and they confiscated his new Vimana. The prosecutor and the judge simply laughed at him when he tried to explain to them that he had a mercury engine. They pretty much got all their best scientists together and were like, "Can you make a mercury engine?" And they're like, "No, impossible, can't be done." So they laughed at him, and they said that it was completely impossible for anything to be ever powered by mercury, which we know today is not true. Mercury ion engines can be used, supposedly, at least ion engines can be used in space travel to be moved around very slowly, to create a small line of propulsion from one little aircraft. So to keep
what do we know? Just some testing that I know NASA's doing, probably, in Boeing. I'm not too sure off the top of my head.
So apparently NASA used mercury ion engines at one point. I don't think they use them anymore.
Okay.
So they said that they publicly announced that ion engines can provide constant acceleration, reducing travel times. So that's what it is. Instead of just going in one direction and like getting really fast and then just letting it float, it would provide constant acceleration. So that way you're always going fast. At least this is with ion engines. We probably don't use mercury today, but we found out that you can use mercury. Yeah. We just don't really know how. So NASA was successful with only 1 pound of thrust with mercury, which is inadequate. It doesn't. Yeah. It's not going to work. I mean, in space travel, it may be able to keep you going, but it's just not gonna. It's not good enough to even put all the effort into, because you can only get 1 pound of thrust out of mercury. So he was thrown in jail.
Oh, ouch! Wait, he had mercury poisoning, and then
he was
thrown in jail.
Then he was thrown in jail, and he was in there for a few years. But when they released him, their condition was that he was not allowed to make any more machines. But he supposedly created another Vimana called the Rukma Vimana.
What is it? Does that mean? What does that do?
So this is more like a pyramid shaped device that was supposedly going around, and there's a couple illustrations of what that looks like online. And he supposedly built this after he got out because he was like, I figured this out. All of them are idiots that they don't believe me, and I'm going to continue to build this stuff. Like we said, we are not saying that any of this is 100% fact. It's just a very, very interesting story.
So it's fact, though, that he got mercury poisoning.
That he got mercury poisoning, that he went to jail. That he went to jail.
The conditions was he wasn't supposed to build anything else.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, those are the facts. So, it's the 30s now at this point. And guess who starts taking yearly expeditions to India?
I don't know. Chuck Norris.
Close. Hitler.
Oh.
Hitler starts taking yearly expeditions.
Whoa, you can't compare Hitler to Chuck Norris.
You're right.
Anyway.
Sorry. That was. Hitler started taking yearly expeditions to India. Hitler was all about the conspiracy. It was all about the crazy, and thought that like all of this ancient power could be possessed. And he believed that at one point India was, very, advanced, and they had all these flying machines. And he has people going to India all the time, researching everything, trying to find something crazy. So it's rumored. I mean, all of this is rumored, but it's rumored that the bell-shaped Vimana that he made, so it was kind of like a pyramid, kind of like a bell, was secretly taken to Germany in the 1930s and was recreated as the famous Nazi bell.
What the Nazi bell?
The Nazi bell. Honestly, I feel like you should just look at a picture of this because that is
because I'm like,
if you look up the Nazi bell, the Nazi bell was spotted flying around in Germany. It has a big swastika on it, and it's flying around. It looks like a bell, but it's up in the air.
We'll put that up on the screen.
And it is flying around, doing its own thing. These are all kinds of there's accounts of people seeing this thing, the swastika, and it's flying around with some sort of really weird propulsion.
Yeah, wow, that's a bell for sure, and there is a swastika on it, and there's a lot of pictures of this actually.
Yes.
So wow,
and it all happened around the time that this guy was building these flying machines. So, you can see the similarity between the Rukma Vimana and the Nazi bell. Strangely, the bell-shaped UFOs have been sighted multiple times around the world, and
just like all UFOs.
Yeah, and I mean it's crazy. So, what happened to SB Tolpaid?
His demise.
He received no recognition, no money, and no credit for anything. This dude pretty much died in anonymity until today. No.
Until we claim that he actually did things. Well, so that really stinks.
He died a heartbroken man at the age of 53.
Ooh. He died at 53 because of mercury poisoning?
Yes. He had mercury poisoning for the rest of his life.
Wow.
And that is supposedly what he died for. So there's a lot of weird things going on there with nobody else was working on that kind of technology at the time as far as we know. But then all of a sudden Hitler shows up with it. And what's he doing? Taking yearly trips to India. Granted, he did take yearly expeditions to a lot of places.
Yeah.
But it was all these places that he thought harnessed like ancient power. Like he was probably all about the crystal skulls and that kind of stuff.
And what Hitler did, is horrible. However, he was a busy man and he got a lot of stuff done. So it's all conspiracy theories. But
Well, part of
you
the reason we can call the Rocket City is partially because of Hitler, because he was, he got Werner von Braun to work for him and got him to build the bombs. And obviously Werner von Braun did not want the bombs to be sent to people, but, he did expedite the space program. Does not make up for anything that he's done. But, he did, there was, the tiniest bit of scientific, movement with Hitler.
Right, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories with like Werner von Braun and being a Nazi and stuff like that. We won't go down that rabbit hole, but that is curious, from the Star Venture to fly all the way into space. That's one reason that is a subject of our podcast today, and I think it's very important to talk about it and think about it and understand relatively with where the conspiracy theories come from and why they come in that form. Because, my gosh, man, we've now been to the moon and stuff like that, and the things that we have done in the past 200 years are so impressive. And I think some of these conspiracy theories, there are a few conspiracy theories, you can look it up, that have come out and that are true. The CIA was sending text messages in the 80s in Russia when they were in the Soviet Union, spying on them. They're using text messages. The government usually has technology before the people do. The government, the military invented the internet. There's so many things.
What was it called before it was the internet?
Oh, I have no clue.
I knew this, but it was not called the internet first. It was the program that made all of this kind of crazy stuff. It was called
Skynet.
Something similar to that. It was something.
Really?
It was something net and like FarsaNet or something like that. It was whatever program was like working on all that secret government stuff. Okay, now the only thing that's left about this story.
Okay.
So we were talking about Mercury and ancient flying machines. Soviet scientists actually discovered age-old instruments used in navigating cosmic vehicles. Maybe. Possibly.
Maybe, possibly. Soviet
the
Union,
devices,
Russian had too much vodka.
Probably. The devices are hemispherical objects of glass or porcelain ending in a cone with a drop of mercury inside of caves of Turkestan and the Gobi Desert is where they found them. Inside caves. And they were little porcelain and glass enclosures that had mercury inside of them, but not much. A tiny amount. Maybe you don't need that much. Who knows?
Well, obviously today we've been trying with a lot, and you said 1 pound of thrust or whatever. God. So we really don't know.
Yeah. And then what's also weird is, we're talking about Turkestan and the Gobi Desert. Very close to that is Pakistan. And Pakistan is right next to India. In India, there is some writing that nobody can decipher, but they found the exact same type of writing on Easter Island, 1,000 miles away.
Wow.
Thousands of miles away. So there's all these weird things going on with India, Germany, Pakistan, these writings. I think that it's a can of worms, and I might have opened it.
It's possible, and I think there's a lot of things probably hidden from us in all of society that we don't talk about, that the conspiracy theories come from. Maybe they're not super outlandish, or maybe they are super outlandish, like the fourth dimension and stuff like that, but it's completely possible that there is some ancient civilization text that has been hidden because they've had advanced technology. I just want to put that out there.
I don't think necessarily it has to be hidden. I think that we have so much ancient, writings that are straight up just tell you these people came here, they gave us this, and we all just see it as, just their folklore. and there's just a lot of strange things when it comes to flying in ancient times.
Yeah, like the first civilization, the Sumerians, where their ancient texts talk about that they were put here to mine gold by the gods, and they have actual pictures of what looks like UFOs and stuff. If they actually talked about this stuff in school, I probably would have paid attention more.
Well, yeah, with the Sumerians, they have that picture of the solar system, where they have all 8 planets.
Oh, right. Don't they have I think they had not just 8. I think they had maybe it was 8.
Maybe it was 9 because they're the ones that talked about that weird 9th planet that has the strange, orbit that you can only see once every 10,000 years or whatever. That's like Planet X or whatever.
Pluto.
It's not Pluto.
Well, no. Pluto has the one reason it's not a planet is because it doesn't align with our elliptical plane.
I thought it wasn't a planet because it was too small.
Well, no, that is one reason, because it doesn't hold its orbit is put off because its first moon, Charon, is. Shank just talked about this today in his presentation. So obviously, I've just learned all this. Well, not just all learned of it. I knew of it, but he put it in perspective for me. And the moon is
And when you say Shank, you mean your roommate who talks about this kind of stuff at work.
Yes. And so Charon is about half the size of Pluto, and so it makes the masses that's such a massive object to have as a moon that its orbit's kind of weird when they actually orbit each other pretty much. And then Pluto is a dwarf planet because they think they came from the Kuiper Belt, which is past the solar system.
Yes.
And
not the Oort cloud.
The what cloud?
The Oort cloud, which is past the Kuiper Belt.
Oh, I haven't heard that one yet.
The Oort cloud is the outer rim of the solar system.
The outer rim.
I took astronomy.
It sounds like freaking.
I took astronomy 100. So
the outer rim though sounds just like Star Wars. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's not a planet because it doesn't align with the elliptical plane. So sometimes it's actually closer than Neptune because of how it orbits.
Oh.
So if they're describing this, that it has a weird orbit and it's our 9th planet, because we mistakenly, well, obviously for you Pluto lovers out there, you still think Pluto should be a planet, which is, I think.
Darn Pluto lovers.
Darn Pluto lovers. That episode of Rick and Morty. Pluto is a planet. Anyway, that it's possible that they're like, oh, that's another planet. It has a weird orbit. We found it, and it was closer at one point. Than
well,
Neptune.
The whole thing
if it was possible at the time, I don't think they were able to even see past Saturn technically.
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing. That's what's weird about that.
Yeah.
What's weird about that? The picture that they have of the whole solar system. But what the whole thing is that they say that those people that came there that created them, their whole religion of the Sumeria is that they came from a planet that only comes close to Earth every few hundred years or a few hundred 10,000 years, something like that. That's where they originally came from, their gods. I feel like we went down a rabbit hole there. I feel like
we went down a rabbit hole, but it's very interesting to talk about. And
definitely, I want to get more into it at one point. I want to have more have that whole written out notes and everything to make sure we get everything 100% accurate.
Of course. Well, as you all know, we are going to be doing many more things, and this is one of them that I think would need to be touched on in the intro to flight, and that you need to know that there's people that potentially flew and that actually did fly before the Wright brothers. Farther is questionable, but thanks so much, Dillon, for preparing all that, and we are going to be filming so much more. We have another episode coming out very soon. Just actually, I already scheduled so many different things, so it should be exciting. And Dillon, you'll be right along with me.
Episode 1 of many.
One of many. Donuts in the sky.
Donuts in the sky, dress to impress. That is the moral of today's story.
That's our logo.
Dress to impress.
Dress to impress. Next time we need to come in freaking tux and suits. And
I have a suit. I know you do.
Yeah. I'm just going to come in a wedding dress. It's fine.
A wedding dress? Okay.
It's like,
Change it up a little bit. I mean, rock stars do it. You're pretty much a rock star. So
don't say that.
you got a rock star personality.
Maybe we'll see. I mean, it sounds like it for sure, huh? So stay tuned. Rock City podcast. Hope you guys have a good one. Thanks so much for listening in. And
If you stuck
Donuts in the
around this
Sky.
long.
If you stuck around this long, I think you. Maybe.
I think they did. I don't think they could put it down. I think that once they hear it, they're like, these guys were onto something.
Either way, it's just because of how magnificent your beard is.
No Shave November. It'll be gone here in a couple days.
Really, you're gonna shave it all off?
Maybe. We'll see.
Okay. I still need to grow one. Just give me your beard.
Beard implant.
Beard implant. Donuts in the Sky, dress to impress. Beard implant. All right.
Thanks, Cody.
Over and out. Thank you, bud.